Well, I'm pretty sure I found the end reason why my truck did what it did. This is the inner tie rod, or I should say this is the tie rods, but let me show you just how loose this inner tie rod is. Yeah, it's just flopping around. It's very, very loose. You can see just how gross and dirty it is. It did have a Zerk on it, so this end was greasable, but it's got a lot of play in there. It's really notchy. You hit, like, I go out here and I come back, you can feel it like fall and snap into place there. If we look at the center link, you can see how dirty it is. A little bit of combination of the oil and grease from the top of the truck, from the steering pump, but the boot on that, as you can see, was a long ways out. The Zerk is still on there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pump some grease through that to make sure it's all cleaned, and then make sure that the that inner hole is good, because I want to make sure that I can grease these up well. As I've been doing with the rest of this truck, I am replacing them with more Mevotech stuff, the TTX line. But on top of that, I am also sleeving these. So I got these Kryptonite sleeves. They're going to go on these as well. The Kryptonite sleeve basically just sits in there like that, and it just makes the tie rods a little bit stronger and a little bit beefier. So the thing about these sleeves is there isn't much information on these about what they're compatible with or what they will work with. From the most part, most people, or most things they can find, say that they'll only work with GM or OEM AC Delco tie rods. But I discovered that with these TTX ones, so I just got the lock nuts on there now, that they thread on and they'll work. So what I did was I took one of the new outers and I screwed it, I threaded it on as far as it would go. Then I would mark the threads where this would stop, and then I threaded this on to where it would stop, and there was plenty of thread left. There was plenty of thread left from between the end of this to where this was, to allow this to all work together. So what I need to do now is I need to basically lay this one flat like this, and then I need to take, everything's covered in grease, take the new outer, which you can see just how much better this one is and how much beefier it is. So now I need to take that and an inner and wind them together so that they are the same length as this one, so that when I go to put in the truck, the steering can be sort of within the same realm. I do plan to get a an alignment on this truck after I've done all this, because the main reason why I was doing this for is, you can see, like, these are my old tires, and I mean, they still got the wear bar here, but the tread is so bad. There's like such little tread left on here. So I got some new tires that I want to put on these. They're 11.5s, not 12.5s. So they're a little bit narrower, and they'll be much newer and be a little more peace of mind. So let's get to making these tie rods and getting them in set up properly. And then we'll work on cleaning out the center link and all that other crap, so that all this can work. So we're just gonna move everything here. Okay, so that's the old one. So now, find my anti-seize first, because, well, you should always anti-seize these threads as best as you can. All right, new tie rod. Got the anti-seize here. Yeah, it's cold in my shop. It gets a little gooey. Almost comes off like icing. So we're just gonna spread this around. Get some anti-seize on that. And we're gonna grab a sleeve. Can't really see, but you can see like the end is in there now. I'm going to put some more anti-seize on that and go further down. Give everything a bit of a fighting chance here. Alright, so now do the sleeve on. Now this sleeve, it will go down quite a ways on this, surprisingly. And then what will happen is that the sleeve on this end, because of its diameter, is just slightly, is about the same, if not just slightly smaller than the diameter of this. So it does kind of bind on there. But you can see that it still goes down without a problem. And you can see how much thread I got sticking out there. So that's how much thread you get. This is threaded down as pretty much as far as it'll go. So that's sleeved. Anti-seize in there and on the end. Now we can thread this on. See there, so it's pretty much threaded on as far as it can go, and that's how much thread is left. Now you can get a little bit better of an idea. So that's the inside of the inner tie rod. Here's the inner tie rod on this one. I know the boot is like way up here, but this end just looks a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. This is the sleeve, the gap, the tie rod, and this end is basically lined up as much as it can be. So those two are all but in line, and this end is pretty much in line as well. So I don't think I'm going to have to make much of an adjustment on this, which is kind of weird, but I guess we'll see what happens when it goes in for an alignment and I install it. So that's that put together. So now we need to come back down here. We need to make sure that this grease zerk in here will work without a problem. Just got a little tool pick here. You just see how thick it is in there. So it's not bad. It's a little gooey. So I'll grab my grease gun. All right, let's fill this up with some grease and make sure the zerk fits. And the zerk will work. Grease is cold. I think I'm almost out of grease too, which is gonna suck. But it looks like that zerk fitting is working good. So we're good there. So that grease will be good for the threads. That's that. Now we're gonna put the new tie rod in place. Get it all wound in. Oh, we're getting a little bit more play on this one, so I'll just twist it around there. And I gotta get my wrench to make sure that we've got my big crescent wrench here. So I'm gonna tighten up the inside of that. trying to find a spot here. It's difficult. There, that works. We're just gonna tighten up the end of this inner joint. So that's just on the end there. So we're just gonna tighten this up. And once I get this tight, then we'll work on this end. So back when I get this tight. So now this is where this step will be different for you depending on if you got a lift in your truck or not. Because I've got a 6-inch lift in this, I have different knuckles. These are lift knuckles. So this top part here is different. So on lifted knuckles for some trucks, or I should say, let's say on a normal truck, the tie rod will usually come in from the bottom. Because these are lifted knuckles, the tie rod will have a tendency to come in from the top. So, so for this one, I'm going to do two things. One, it's going to go into the top, but two, as another little pointer, when you're doing your tie rod installs, always make this hole point in a direction that will be easy for you to get your cotter pin in. I usually do a front to back. This one is twisted too far this way. And depending on how new and how tight your tie rods are, usually you can just use a pick. I got a 90-degree one here. You can just stick it in the end and you just rotate it. And then it's more back and forth so that when you put it in, the cotter pin will go in this way and not this way and make it more of a pain. So if I just pull my knuckle in here a little bit, tie rod is in. I'll have to find the sweet spot. There, it's poking out the bottom. And you can kind of see, I know my light's screwing with it. Where are we here? So there you can see it's kind of poking out the bottom. The hole is just kind of poking out there for the cotter pin. So I'll get that all cinched down. Mevotech is a little bizarre. I've never seen these before. I don't know if it's a new thing. I don't know how people feel about them. They use a standard castle nut, but they use these types of cotter pins. I've got no issues with them. They are easier to come in and out, and they were usable, so makes it simple for me. So I'm gonna get that one all cinched down, tightened down, and then I'm gonna get the cotter pin in, and then I'm gonna get that sleeve tightened. So get that all installed and I'll show you that. All right, so show you here it all finished up. So you can see it's all installed. Both ends are in. Got some grease in this one just because it was easy. The only thing that I can see being a possible problem with this setup is that when they go to do an alignment, because you can't get a wrench on this back piece, I mean, you can use pliers, I guess, if you really wanted to. I'd rather not get that all marked and dinged up, but if they wanted to, because there's no, this is just round stock here. The shop would basically have to take this outer off and then make the adjustments and then put the outer back in and then do their finishing from there. So that's the only thing and the only concern that I would have with this setup. And I think, and let me grab the other one, I think, maybe not. I was thinking originally that this part here was shorter on this old one, but it looks to be about, I would say, actually, the Mevotech is a hair shorter. So yeah, so with that sleeve in there, it might make an alignment on this a little bit more challenging, but I have faith in the shops. So I'll just make sure I let the shops know that it's sleeved before they do any work, and then that way if they have to deal with it, then they can. So, okay, I have now officially found the first thing about these Mevotechs that are a bit of a nuisance. So you can see here, the tie rod is off, and I'm getting ready to install the new one. And if you read the service manual, they will tell you that the inner tie rods should be torqued to 75 foot-pounds. So I know a lot of people, when it comes to inner tie rods, that they use the German method of Kryptonite. But for those that might want to actually torque them down, you're going to run into a bit of a weird issue. I'm trying to get my camera to balance here. One sec. So this is the original inner tie rod, and when you read around enough, you'll find that this end will work with a crow's foot that's 36 millimeter as an exact fit. It's a little loose, but it'll work, it fits. So that's good. The Mevotechs are not. So new Mevotech 36 mil does not fit. So Mevotech is being better because this end piece is bigger, but this is a 38.4 millimeter crow's foot for those inner tie rod tools that I picked up earlier for a different project. And you'll notice it does not fit. It's too small. So we know that this end is bigger than 38.4 millimeters. I also have another one. This is 40 millimeters. And if we try it, this one is too big and it's too floppy. You could probably find a 40 millimeters crow's foot that would work, but in my findings, a 40 millimeter crow's foot could be found, but they were almost like $200, so that was a bit out of price range. The only option that I had to find as a wrench that could fit on there, but it's still loose, is I went on Amazon and I found this fan clutch wrench, and the biggest opening on the end is 39 millimeters. So 39 millimeters will work enough on there that I could get it, and it fits better than the 40. So my biggest beef with these Mevotechs right now is, why not just make this a standard like 38 millimeter? Or, I mean, you can even just make it 38 millimeter, because you can go on Amazon and you can find a 38 millimeter crow's foot pretty easy for these. So because it falls in between a 38 and a 40, and it falls between a 39 and a 40, you can't find a wrench without spending a fortune that may fit on this tightly. So all they would need to do is just make this a perfect 38 millimeters, and then you'd be able to find a crow's foot that'll work perfectly on that. So again, I'm slightly annoyed with Mevotech using a non-standard size for that, which makes torquing those down to spec, a challenge. So got out my trusty 16-inch adjustable wrench. So I'm just going to use that. Going to German it, and then we'll call this good. Other than the nut size on the end of the tie rod, I've got no issues with these. I'm going to do just a basic DIY alignment for the tires to make sure that everything is straight, so that I can at least get this to the alignment shop. Hopefully, if I tell them that they got sleeves, they can do something to make this work for me. Other than that, not a whole lot to this job. Just a lot of farting around, trying to get stuff done up and undone and torqued and untorqued and stuff like that. My grease gun worked good for that. Really helped just make it go faster. So you can just use a hand pump one. I'm getting old. I don't want to be spending a bunch of time doing that. So battery powered one it is for me. But I think that's it for this one. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.